We are on air, and I believe all the council members that are coming are here, so 5 seconds. All right, it is now 4 o'clock, and we'll go ahead and get started with the Community Planning and Transportation Committee meeting for Thursday, August 24th, 2023. And we have 2 items on the agenda today. The first one, as usual, is the public transit report. And as I've mentioned many times before, this is where we get an update every month about the public transit system, the ridership numbers, projects that are ongoing, route changes, anything like that. And also where we discuss things like road construction projects that are ongoing in the city of Norman, different initiatives around sidewalks and different infrastructure. So again, every month in this committee, that's where we discuss these things. So we'll go ahead and get started with item number 1, which is the public transit ridership report. We have Taylor with staff here.
Thank you, sir. A lot to update you on, but I'll try to be brief because I know you have another item. Going through the first half of the report here, we have made some good progress on the new transit center at 320 East Comanche. We have some, from the exterior, you might notice that we have some paint on there. It's very Embark blue around the top. You can't miss it. The fence has gone down because we've cleaned up the outside. We don't have anything really laying around, so we've been able to do that. Cleaned it up really nice, and we've sealed the asphalt parking lot and cleaned that up a little bit. So it looks really good exterior.
It was a sun-faded brown, I think, before, so.
Yeah. So it really looks a lot better. The seating structure should go up in the front in the next week or 2, and that'll really complete a lot of the exterior work. And then the interior, we've just drywalled completely this past week, so we're moving right along. I hope I'm going to add some pictures and provide more of an update next time at the next CP&T, but if any of you are interested in taking a closer look, please let me know. It's really coming along. Go ahead.
Were you going to say when the opening of it?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. So we had to push back the opening from October 1st, or 2nd, which we were eyeing, to October 16th. We'll be seeing some marketing going out in the next few weeks and trying to get the word out starting about a month and a half, 2 months in advance, just so we don't give too much of notice, because sometimes people, don't have like me, don't have a long attention span and can forget, so you don't really want to start too early.
Okay.
But that'll give us a comfortable breathing room to get in, test the routes, and be able to make sure we feel comfortable starting service on October 16th on that Monday.
I would definitely be good with a little bit more detailed look next month before we get ready to open it.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
And we plan to have a formal ribbon cutting event maybe the Friday before, so we'll have some more details coming out about that too, let everybody know. I haven't mentioned, he started it back in March, but I don't know why I haven't mentioned before, but Mr. Lamar Hammond back there, if you wave for us, Lamar, he's our new Embark Norman operations specialist. Okay. So really happy to have him down here. You may see him out and about. And we both office up there out at North Base. So great addition to the team down here. For grants, I think it's been since we've met, but we've received another FTA competitive grant for the 6 CNG cutaway buses that we applied for with council's approval back in April. So that's 6 more vehicles that we'll likely order this year with I think 70 or 75% federal match. So taking that money that council allocates us for one bus and splicing it up to try to get more vehicles out of it. So great news there. And that's in addition to all the vehicles we have coming and have gotten, which I'll skip microtransit for that vehicles.
Those will be CNG or electric?
Those are CNG, okay. Yeah. So on the ground right now, we've received 5 35-foot CNG buses. We have 3 in service. We're waiting on 2 more to go in service probably in the next couple days. And then we have 3 ADA minivans that we're swapping out with 3 older ADA minivans that we received. And we have 5 more paratransit vehicles on the way in the next month or two. So we're making a lot of progress with our fleet in the next few months, and then we still have some to order. It's really good.
The current status of the bus fleet specifically, because I know we inherited some pretty old ones. Do we have any of those really old ones still out there?
Yeah, so we inherited 28 vehicles. So far, with the vehicles on order, we'll be able to replace 15 of them. And then we have funds for 6 more, plus I think we have funds from SDBG from last year that will be available October 1st for 2 more big buses. So that'll be 8 more vehicles that we'll be able to order this year. So we'll be able to replace about 22, 23 buses out of the 28. And I think that'll leave us with 1 vehicle that isn't programmed to have funding that will be past its useful life. Because we did inherit some that were within that range still.
No, that's pretty remarkable progress, I would say, because that's one of the big concerns I think we had about is how we're gonna replace 28 old buses. So that's great news, I think, and especially that you've been able to get so much outside funding to do it. So appreciate your work on that.
We've been really fortunate for your all support to let us have that local match and be able to go after those competitive grants with some money in our back pocket to show them we're serious about it. So we really appreciate that.
Do you know how old the oldest one is?
The current oldest one that we have is a 2007s, and they're going away with those 5 CNG. With the electric buses, we got rid of our 2 2002 buses.
Nice.
Or 2003, I'm sorry, the 40-footers that we had left. So those were the oldest we had, which
20 years.
20 years, yeah, and they're still going. Testament to them and fleet staff, but and prayers, I guess. But they were still going pretty strong. Nothing wrong with them. I mean, other than them being old, they were still safe to drive. Just really old buses. So
Would this be somewhere to mention that we've had some kind of discussions about one of our bus purchases being a bus that looks like a trolley?
I know that council's talked about that, and I know we've talked about that in the past. I think
An
we
event
still.
one, sort of like that.
I think we still need to flush that out a little bit to make sure we fully understand what council desires with that vehicle, and then figure out the cost of that. Because there's different avenues you could go. You could actually go and get a rubber tire trolley, or you could get a bus that looks like a trolley. There might be another option that I don't know about, but I think we still need to flush out that idea.
Do you know what the one that CART has? The one that used, still running. I saw it just yesterday.
Yeah, they have 2, I think they're 2018 model hometown trolleys, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Something like that, I think, is what we're.
okay. Yeah, I think over the next few months, we'll be working with you all and with the city manager to look into that more, because I know that came out of your retreat.
Perfect.
Going back to the microtransit real quick, we did kick that off on Monday. It doesn't sound like a lot, but we've had 68 completed rides the last 3 days. I'm hoping to see with the weekend a lot more coming online, a lot more app users. So it's been a pretty good response so far. I haven't heard any complaints, so that's good. Just let me know if you guys have any questions, and we'll be happy to take those. And if anybody's having any trouble navigating how to use the service, we can tackle those too.
Councilmember Peacock?
Do you have any data on the breakdown of people that are using it as an accessible ride service? 'Cause I know that was partly the intention of getting that in place.
Right, we can drill down into that, but since it's so early,
Sure.
I haven't really dived into the dashboard that we've been given access to. So hopefully, as we go, I plan to start incorporating a more comprehensive report of the microtransit and how it's going into this monthly report.
Appreciate
So,
I did get to help John High use it the other day
Okay.
after the council meeting. And ran into a little bit of a snag. It got worked out great, but I guess the van that came wasn't accessible. So then they got another one, and that driver went to the destination, or was sent to the destination and not the pickup. So within 20 minutes, it all got sorted out. They came and got him, loaded him up, and so it seemed to work pretty well, and they were very easy to work with, I thought. So, yeah.
yeah.
was like,
We'll
well,
have a
it's the
little
first
bit.
day, so-
Yeah,
or
we'll have
second
some
day, so-
hiccups. They're trained and all good to go, but there'll be some hiccups as they learn the system and everything, so.
And the Safe Ride part of that,
Mhm.
so that's
It's
Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
Technically Thursday, Friday, Saturday from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m.
Okay.
That students, if you create your login with your OU email address and you're a student, you'll be able to ride fare free during those hours, which is historically what's been the case with Safe Ride. So.
And OU's contributing for that?
There was a agreement on council's agenda on August 8th that and then we had a companion item with VIA to amend their contract, and they're contributing about 120,000 to add on that Safe Ride piece that we weren't already kind of doing. It's there was overlapping some, so just a great partnership to be able to have one service, and then the students will be able to access the hours the rest of the time with the fare, but they'll just have one service that way, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there'll be, I guess, OU's advertising on campus and things like that about it?
Yeah, we work jointly with OU and VIA on marketing materials, and yeah, there's some that are tailored to campus and students, there's some that's tailored to the community, but generally they're all pretty much the same, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go Norman? Norman
Norman on Demand, yeah.
is the app. Download it.
Yep.
Doesn't even take 2 minutes like Councilor Bullock. It's like 10 seconds. So, and you can see the route boundary and all the different information about it pretty easily on the front page. So, any questions from?
Okay. And we'll see how it goes.
Appreciate you, sir.
Last few things on the ridership. You have 2 months worth. You have June and July. For June, I just want to point out the year-to-date, because it was the last month of the fiscal year. We had 330,398 passengers for the paratransit and the fixed route. About 307 of that was fixed route, and that's pretty much back to pre-COVID levels. I think it was 333,000 the last year that OU did it, which was really the last year before COVID. So that's really exciting that we're back to that point. And then July had a great showing above of what it was last year, and so it shows I think we're going to keep climbing, I hope. But we had about 10,000 more passengers in July this past month over last July. So I hope our ridership continues to grow, and we'll see how the route changes, how people react to that, and I think it'll be surprising how much easier the system's able to be used, I think, with the route changes. So
It appears that every route, pretty much fixed route, is increased, and it's pretty good increase over last year's ridership in total for the whole system.
right.
Like there was 400 more people with bikes riding in June.
Yeah, that can be a fickle number because if it's cold or hot or,
Sure.
but yeah, it's
But
a
it's
good number.
positive trend.
Yeah,
Yeah, and a 33% increase in ridership, total ridership from June of this year from June of last year.
yes, sir.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I think that's the average daily, and that's a great metric because some months, like June of last year is not the same as June of this year in terms of how many service days we had, so the average daily is a really good one to look at, and being at 1,100 or a little bit more, that's pretty good for a system our size.
and the 330,398, that was for July of 22 to June
23, yeah.
of 23, okay, and that was an increase from 266,000
Right.
from the year before. That's a pretty significant number, I
I would
think.
think so.
Yeah, okay. And the new routes, is that still on the same timeline of starting as before?
So that aligns with the transit center
So
opening
16th.
October 16th, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any questions about that particular part? Okay. Any questions from the public about public transit? Did you guys come here for any questions? Please, if you would.
It's Norman on Demand. I understand.
Would you please state your name for the
Oh, I'm
record?
sorry. My name's Mark Sharp.
Mark Sharp. What ward do you live in, Mark?
In Norman on Demand, that's not a door-to-door service, is it?
It's designed to be corner to corner, which may require somebody to travel a little bit to meet the vehicle. That's just to make it a little bit more efficient. So if multiple people are going in the same direction and the app recognizes that, you might be able to meet halfway or something or at the same location, so the driver doesn't have to move as much.
So if I have a daughter at 2 o'clock in the morning coming home from a bar or something, they're gonna let her out someplace at 2 o'clock in the morning, and she's gonna walk in the dark and hopefully not get molested or anything to wherever she's going.
Well,
Did I understand that?
For example, we may not want somebody to stop right in the middle of a block on Main Street downtown, but they may stop on Crawford or Peters or, something like that, a safer side street. So that,
If taking someone to a residence, like as their destination, they would take them to that.
yeah, it'll depend on the app and if there's multiple riders, but it's supposed to be a little bit more efficient. Now, if somebody has a little bit more concern about that, we can definitely look into their case and, I can ask VS for some more information on how that corner to corner model works, but I think it's a case-by-case basis on if multiple people are riding and if you can make it a little bit more efficient by meeting in the middle, if that makes sense.
If I
Definitely.
have a person who needs to get to work at 4 o'clock in the morning, what service does she have or he have?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have any public transit options that early in the morning at this time. They may have an option for private, like Uber or Lyft or something like that.
I don't even know that any of those are.
I know there's iDrive in Norman, another rideshare service. But if you have a person in mind or somebody can reach out to me, we can try to figure out another service they can use.
The reason I'm asking is because I've used, and my wife, who's legally blind, has used a driver for you. And for some odd reason, which I do not understand, the city of Norman refuses to work with not a company anymore, it's
Can you
a 501(c)(3).
make a statement on that?
And they will work at 4 o'clock in the morning. And they will do door to door. And they will service areas that Embark will not service. Like way out east and
Sure.
still in the city of Norman, but out to the lake or up northwest or northeast. And I don't know why the city of Norman does not want to work with these people.
Well, the city doesn't have a formal agreement with them for that service, so I don't know that I'm,
We do have our legal staff in the room, and they might be able to provide a answer or a better answer than we might have for you.
Sure, my understanding is that service has a license as a taxi through the city, but they've only been able to provide insurance and get licensed for certain vehicles and not their entire fleet. And so that has been the issue. They haven't been able to meet the ordinance requirements for licensure.
So it's all insurance.
I think that's the primary issue, yes.
That's the same thing we heard from the Corporation Commission too, and then they changed. Thank you.
I do appreciate your comments, and if you have any further feedback about the on-demand program, please feel free to contact any of
I was just
us.
asking a general question.
Yeah,
That's what I've heard.
please.
It's gonna be, basically, here's a bus stop. That's where you gotta get to get picked up. I don't know if that is true or not.
yeah, it's not designated for bus stops, it's just, like I said, it might be a side street or something like that that's close to you, but.
But we'll
Well,
definitely
sure.
be monitoring how it
It
works.
just doesn't sound like to me. I didn't have a daughter. I had a son that went to OU. He doesn't go anymore. But I wouldn't want my son out walking in a dark street around the campus at 2 or 3 in the morning either, because we don't want to go deliver somebody right to where they're needing to get.
Sure.
We want to
Definitely
drop them off the corner because it's, quote, more efficient. It's not more efficient if someone gets mugged, raped, or anything like that.
Thank you very
It's less
much.
safe.
Definitely appreciate your feedback on
That's
that.
just my opinion.
Absolutely. Well, thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Taylor, for the update on public transit, and I think we'll continue to monitor how the on-demand system is operating and any feedback that we receive from the public about issues that may arise or concerns that anyone may have after they use it. Please let us know, and we will discuss it in this committee and make changes if necessary,
Yep.
and as we move on down the road with it. So hopefully, though, it helps connect people to the gaps where our fixed route system doesn't go, and then with the ADA aspect, where our private companies don't offer a vehicle for that service. So, so anyway, I appreciate the update. I'm looking forward to seeing how, what it looks like after a month of it operating.
And we didn't talk about the Sunday service with the on-demand, but I'm really excited to see how
Yes.
community receives that. And then this is kind of a test bed of how this will go, and then we could always add fixed route to these times or on Sundays if we analyze the data and see really hot pockets. So I think it's going to be a really good.
That's really the
case.
only complaint I've heard so far is that it doesn't run when the bus is running, so or during the day, most of the day. And so, one person in particular wants it to run all the time. So-
Yeah.
So anyway, appreciate
you.
it, Kelly. Okay. Second item on our agenda today is a discussion regarding the Johnson & Johnson analysis update on infrastructure within the Center City Tax Increment Finance District. And looks like we have Scott here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Committee, for letting me come today. This is just an update. We were here in March to talk about the Center City Form-Based Code Infrastructure Analysis, and we walked away with there with a little bit of homework to do for you guys. I attached that PowerPoint from back then. I can load that up if you'd like me to, but I think we can kind of talk through it pretty easy. Basically, the TIF, the Tax Increment Financing District, sorry, I'm stumbling over that word again, was set up at the same time as the Center City Form-Based Code as a companion to be able to pay for needed infrastructure that was identified through this analysis. And going back to that analysis, looked at it in a block by block, looked at numerous storm sewer, water, alleys, streetscapes, sidewalk, and streets as what might need to be updated. And it gave us a good go-by to where you could use to be able to decide what the cost would be, and then that was used to set up the TIF. The TIF was 25 years. There's been some money collected to date, and council has kind of demonstrated they'd like to start utilizing some of those funds. So as we were going back through this, there was some concern basically about how you would rank and score those projects, and also if today's numbers still match what was in here so we could be more accurate with what we needed to do. So we were tasked with working with Johnson and Associates, who performed the initial infrastructure analysis. And when we went back to them, they put in a couple of items. Namely, they had ranking our streets and our alleys. And as I shared with you back in March, we had that in-house already. It didn't seem like something we needed somebody else to reevaluate, and that we could put those into the system to be able to decide on those projects. So at that time in March, he had asked us to go back and work with them to remove those from the scope, the street and alley analysis, and that we'd be able to come back with a new proposal from them to perform that work. And the proposal they came back with was $50,000. And that will include the priority improvements matrix, updated costs, and then updated street sections. A couple of street sections don't quite match what we want to be there, or what is now part of our comprehensive transportation plan. We want to make sure that everything matches and works together. And so we were just coming back today to bring this to committee. And if you are pleased with the scope and the fee, we'd be happy to bring this to full council for consideration on the 26th of September, where it could be discussed and voted on at that time by full council. And I can answer any questions, or I could bring up the PowerPoint if we want to go back and look at any of that old information that we had in that PowerPoint.
Okay. Questions?
I know that we had talked about our retreat, especially most recently, and I think we mentioned it in the last time we were in here, but there was a component of this that was the urban design and implementation plan. Did we talk with Johnson about that at all? Because that was a really important piece to the original Center City TIF. I think that original $100,000 that we had budgeted for this, I think part of that was intended to be used for the implementation plan as well. Did we bring that up with them at all, or get them?
That was not something that was discussed with the scoping. I could certainly go back to them and request that.
Okay. From my perspective, I agree with you. Ranking the streets, we can do that in-house. Getting some of the updated cost estimates and the priority matrix, it's important. But I think, the critical component is that urban design piece. getting some input on, what those, what some of those interventions might look like. How do the street conditions start to interact with each other? There's a lot of elements that would be put forth in that plan that I'd like to see. So, yeah, if we go back to them and see what the cost would be to include that, I mean, I'd support that, definitely.
Councilor Schuler?
Yeah, I just want to second that, and just for, I guess, reference sake, we appropriated money for that plan, on May 10th of '22. So there's like a staff report on, there was a bunch of items that we had appropriated different funding and things for, but it was kind of lumped into that long-range planning bucket of money that we were, appropriating. And so I think, what we have here is a good start, right? A lot of it is about infrastructure and, streets and, stormwater and roads and things like that. But, kind of in the line of the vision of what we're working with, strong towns, and thinking about what that design is going to look like. Like, we want to get this right the first time. And if, we have, I think, 2.3 million or something in the TIF right now.
That was what was there in March, yes.
Yeah, so it's probably increased by then. So just thinking about, having a dedicated plan for what the rest of it is going to look. And I think we did something similar to this on like McCullough, whenever we were redesigning those streets over there for like some solutions we did. I remember seeing kind of designs for what the street was going to like bump outs and landscaping, and I think that's what we're kind of, that's,
Yeah,
correct me if
cut-in
I'm wrong.
parking.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of urban design.
Well,
pieces
that's all included in the Center City Form-Based Code. As far as the bump outs and what streets would have which style, that's all included in the street sections.
Sure, I think, but there was kind of an implementation, a strategy plan that went along with that, and maybe how to execute which ones come first, which ones, are high priority, special corridors, how you treat those.
Yeah, like thinking about blocks and sections and things like that.
Please.
Yeah.
I can't see with the chairs. I think this plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but it's taking all of those things that were envisioned in the original study and coming up with priorities of when to implement those improvements. So everything that the TIF covered were those public improvements, roadway, public alley, water line, storm sewer, things like that. So I think this is intended to prioritize those type of improvements, recognizing that any street redesign would have to be done in accordance with the form-based code.
So
I'm
you're,
not familiar with the urban design issue, Councilor, so we might need some clarity. I've never heard of that. That certainly wasn't what our understanding of this
I would
program.
like to go
Can you have
next.
Cameron
Councilor.
talk too?
Yeah.
Grant, and then we'll,
Two things. One, so that 50K for the proposal that's revised, that includes a priority improvements matrix, which I hear is what you're thinking is the implementation plan. Does that mean we're under budget because we allotted 100,000?
There are additional funding in there that could be utilized, yes.
Okay, and then I'd like to ask Cameron Brewer about the implementation plan part of it, because this precedes me, and I believe he was here for the original part of this discussion.
Mr. Brewer, if you'd like to speak about it.
Yeah, sure. Cameron Brewer, live in Ward 4. I served on the ad hoc committee in 2019 where this idea came from for urban design implementation plan. The discussion was really a discussion between myself, Richard McCowan, and Jim Adair. The three of us were all three on that committee, and the context of that discussion was that at the time the kind of plan for implementation of improvements was piecemeal as it was going along, meaning a developer may come along and say, I either have a project that's in the pipeline, or come after the fact and say, hey, can I have my alleyway improved? And there really wasn't a prioritization of those improvements. Now, I understand that there is a prioritization matrix that exists. The urban design implementation is more to the fact that Scott, you had mentioned that yes, the street sections are called for block by block in the Center City Form-Based Code. The issue is that there were 3 street sections designed for the entire form-based code. And you can go down a single street, we'll take Santa Fe, you go 3 blocks in a row, and each of those blocks have specific elements to them that they need to be designed specifically block by block to figure out how those street sections will actually look. And so that was the primary portion of our discussion was, that is the urban design plan. We need to go block by block and figure out at the street level, how do those streets actually look, and what are the specific elements that need to be designed in to account for the differences in those, whether it's the lengths of the blocks, or if you have parking lots on the blocks or whatever it may be. You got to design around those elements to also consider what's there, but also for future development as well. And then the implementation side was to the prioritization, coming up with really trying to match the vision of what the Center City vision was trying to achieve, thinking through what are those priority streets that may be best to go ahead and consider spending funds over the next 2, 3, 4 years to show developers what a vision could be for what that street, whether it's on that street or what future streets could be. So there's discussion about, there's already been discussion about James Gardner. There's discussion about, whether University was that street to kind of become the kind of premier connector between Campus Corner and Main Street. It might be a side street. It might be, let's say, Apache, or you follow a street that you can show what residential development looks like and kind of the differences in those two. I'm just throwing out examples, but this was all kind of within the context of our discussion at the time. So, it's my opinion that given the Johnson Associates has this data, and they also have a full urban design team on their staff, this would be a perfect extension of what they're trying to do. And again, this was a recommendation in 2019, and we're 4 years later, and development has occurred in swaths in that area. So the further this is delayed, the further more of an issue it's going to be as to how we design future projects from an infrastructure perspective.
Thank you. So if I understand you correctly, the priority improvements matrix and the urban design implementation plan may be the same.
I'm still trying to really digest because again, this is something I'm not aware of. I've never heard those words put together in that order, I don't think. So I'm trying to process that. I'd like to see what one of these looks like, because I think what you're describing is going to be much more detailed than what we can get it for $100,000. But I'm not sure, because it still sounds very similar. But I mean, to me, you can't, I don't know that we can stop and go down all the streets and say what every street needs to look like until we know what's developing too. So to me, it sounds like it's an iterative process, kind of. I'd love to look into it more and understand it more, but I'd have to get back with Johnson Associates on what this
I
could
would
be.
think that you'd be able to take the code and then back into what development would look like based on that code. And, that may be better in theory than in practice, but I mean, in most blocks, I think you'd be able to get there.
Based on what color-coded area it is.
The other piece is that within the TIF, and I was also part of the consulting team that wrote the TIF, there are funds that can be allocated for administrative purposes.
Absolutely.
So while 100,000 has been allocated, I think there's additional funds out there that, if need be, I mean, this could be the master plan for the entire infrastructure plan. I think it would be funds well worth spending.
I do recall one part of the discussion being like, whatever plan it is it investing in fixing or redoing the streets in Center City that are in the worst condition, or redoing the ones that are in the position to have the most incentive to develop and create more TIF revenue?
Right.
And so they may not be in the worst shape, but they're in the location that will be more desirable to build, and then that new building generates more TIF revenue, and then we can put that back in it.
Absolutely.
That's kind of what I was.
That's the angle that I'm most interested in. Like, what's the strategy? How do we stimulate the area to basically kind of artificially create more increment? Put money in areas that will generate more investment. And I think we get there partially with a ranking of streets, but it's not the full picture. And so I think this is just another data point to kind of make those decisions with.
And in March, I'd stated that there's obviously those two directions you go from.
Sure.
Or do you go, where are the funds coming from today, and you fix those first?
Sure.
So there's multiple opportunities and directions that we can go.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that as a community or as a committee or council has to be considered. But certainly, you know, I think we do need to be looking, especially when you start looking at alleyways. We've got some alleyways that are in dire need.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go fix one that's in really good shape and leave a bunch of them that are,
Sure.
you know, basically falling apart. But I think there's a lot that goes into that. But like I said, I'd be happy to try to discuss this further with Johnson Associates.
Appreciate that.
Can I make one more comment on this?
Sure.
One other thing that I think is really important in the ordering of all this is the below ground improvements versus above ground improvements and how you order all that. I think Johnson Associates directly had some experience with Project 180 where there was a kind of an infamous example of they previous firm had gone in and planted all the trees, and then they had to come back in and rip it up, put everything underground, and then plant those trees back. That's part of the kind of the ordering and prioritization is you know, if we need to start with underground everywhere, while that's not as flashy as everything else, it's avoiding having to spend public funds twice over for above ground improvements. So that was also part of the discussion, just a little context from the 2019 ad hoc committee as well. So.
Councilmember Grant?
I do also care about some equity in this. I get, like, we have our worst alleys and then also the potential to get some more TIF increment in there, but maybe some kind of sliding scale of ranking, like, or maybe the project that you're aiming for is creating some equity with affordable housing or something. I don't know, but
Where are we getting the biggest bang for the buck and the TIF dollar?
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Density bonuses and things like that. You're providing more units. You should get more access to TIF funds. I mean, there's 1,000 different ways you could probably go about this. And that's the strategy piece that I'm most interested in. I mean,
So
I'm not smart enough to figure
Yeah, I
this
think
out.
we would like a more detailed scope, or at least a discussion with Johnson about what that would look like, given their expertise in it, based on the street level detail, as council members have mentioned. And then see what that cost is and decide if we want to allocate additional funding to it or not. But otherwise, yes, I think we're heading in the right direction. So, anything further from staff or council members about? Okay. Next month, would that be enough time, or?
I would be shocked if I could get anything turned around.
Well,
with-
just like
with
hearing back
Johnson
from them if
Associates
they're.
to- I can try to reach out to them and see what they can do and what their timelines are, but I can't,
What is
I
their
can't
capability?
guarantee their turnaround on something like this in 30 days.
Yeah, no, I don't think having it done in 30 days, just next meeting, would you be able to tell us if, like,
Updated contract.
what the cost might be for an expanded, more detailed scope? And
I will make that.
If not-
I'll try to get that put together and bring it back. I'm already on the agenda with another item, so I'll be here.
Okay.
And I'll try to work with them and see if they can give me a number to pull something like that together.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, anything further from anybody else? Okay, well, that is all the items on the agenda today, so 38 minutes. I appreciate all of you for coming, and again, if anybody watching at home has any questions or comments, anything that we didn't address or you would like us to address, feel free to contact any of us, email or council phone numbers, whichever it may be, and we'll be happy to make sure that we ask those questions for you in our next meeting. Okay, if that's it, then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.